Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if you're new here. First, I just wanted to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I just reached 50, which is not a lot to most YouTubers, but for me it's a big deal. For those of you who don't know, which is probably a lot of you, but I just started doing YouTube probably a month ago or so, just because I watch a lot of true crime cases myself, and I've always been really passionate about missing person cases and, you know, just helping get the word out. And I've always shared those cases with my friends. So I figured, why not start a channel myself, especially because most channels don't really talk about missing person cases that are recent, just because they want to wait until more information is released. And that's totally fair. But I figured, why not start a channel that focuses on more recent cases? So a huge thank you to all 50 of you who have subscribed. I really appreciate it. But let's just go ahead and jump into today's case. So today's case is about 24-year-old Cassie Sheetz. So 24-year-old Cassie Sheetz went missing near Spruce Knob in Pendleton County, West Virginia. Cassie supposedly disappeared after she went hiking with two male friends last Thursday, March 11, 2021. Now, some sources have identified the two male friends that Cassie went missing with as Grant and James, but I'm not going to use their last names just because I haven't seen law enforcement release their names, so I'm just going to refer to them as Grant and James throughout this video. We don't have an exact timeline of the details that occurred leading up to her disappearance, but based on the statements gathered from Grant and James, here's what we've pieced together. So I've heard that Cassie is the one who suggested that the three of them go on a hike because she thought the weather was beautiful that day. She was allegedly the one who was the most familiar with the trails in that area. The group had allegedly been on the trail throughout the day and had stayed on the trail until it was dark out. So this would likely mean that the group had been on the trail for several hours by the time that it got dark out. And according to Grant and James, the group had become separated from each other at around 10 p.m. or a little bit later on Thursday night or early Friday morning around midnight. So around 10 p.m. to midnight is when Grant and James say the group became separated. So Grant allegedly heard a noise and went off alone to check out what it was, while Cassie and James allegedly waited for him to return. Instead of returning, however, Grant said that he got lost and ended up wandering about for 2 hours. And he finally found his way back to the vehicle in the parking lot, but he didn't have the key. So since it was raining and cold, Grant said that he broke the back window of the car in order to climb into the car and stay inside until James and Cassie came out. So meanwhile, after realizing that Grant wasn't coming back anytime soon, Cassie and James also started wandering around, possibly searching for Grant or also trying to find their way out of the trail, and also finding their way back to the car. But eventually, after 2 hours, only James emerged from the trail, and he found Grant waiting at the car. Again, he had broken the rear view window. James explained to Grant that Cassie was walking ahead of him and that he had fallen or tripped, and that when he got back up, Cassie had kept walking and he could not find her. She was nowhere to be found, apparently. After learning this, Grant apparently went back into the trail to search for Cassie, while in the meantime, James had waited either in the car or near the car. Now, apparently, a car passing by noticed the vehicle, and either James stopped that car, or since they noticed the vehicle, they stopped, and the driver of this car was the one to call 911. So at this point, it's around 11 a.m. the next day on Friday, and police find out that Cassie is missing. So again, it's Friday, and the police are just finding out that Cassie is missing. And I've read that Grant was injured while searching for Cassie, but I'm not sure if this is when he went back in to search for her. That's what I've read, when he went back in after James came out and told him that Cassie was missing. I've read that he went back in, and when he was searching for her, he fell down a bank and he broke a bone, but I'm not sure. I also wonder if he could have been injured from when he climbed into the car or when he broke the back glass window. But again, I'm not sure. So the next day after Cassie's reported missing, which was on Friday, canines and helicopters were brought onto Spruce Mountain, which is where this trail was, and along with volunteer firefighters, but nothing was found. So when it comes to theories, the most obvious theory here is that Grant and James had something to do with Cassie's disappearance. So within this broad theory that Grant and James are involved in her disappearance, there are several possibilities. So the first is that the group were having a fun time or partying in the woods late at night, potentially intoxicated or under the influence of substances, and then something went wrong and somebody got hurt. In this scenario, it's possible that neither Grant nor James intentionally wanted to hurt Cassie, but that she ended up in a compromised situation. And then to avoid getting in trouble or risking being at fault, they either covered up what happened or simply fled the scene and came up with the timeline that we have now. The reason some people point to this theory is that the group was on the trail for hours and late into the night, and oftentimes people go to trails to drink or to use illegal substances together. And we also know that in 2017, Cassie pled guilty to opioid distribution charges and was sentenced to serve 2 years in prison, followed by 3 years of probation. And of course, this is not to say that Cassie herself is a user or that she's currently using, but I know it's going to be brought up, so I figured I would mention it here. I've also read that the 2 men that Cassie was with have also had previous drug-related charges. And again, this isn't confirmed since police haven't released the names of these men, but I've gathered this information from numerous sources, including those who know Cassie personally. And the second scenario in which Grant and James are involved is one in which the 2 men intentionally wanted to hurt Cassie. Many people don't believe the men's account of what happened that night for several reasons. In fact, they don't believe that the group was ever on the trail to begin with. So Grant allegedly separated from the group because he heard a noise. But why would James and Cassie not follow Grant to check out what that noise was? It was late and he didn't know the trails. Groups know not to separate, especially when it's laid out. Also, many people don't believe that Cassie would simply keep walking if James had tripped or if he had stopped for a minute or 2. Most people would stop and wait for a friend or go back and help them. So it doesn't make sense that she would keep walking and then simply vanish. And like I've said, it makes sense for her to stop, especially because she was the one who was most familiar with the area. And she was probably leading them through this area. So it doesn't make sense for her to just simply leave them behind. So there's some speculation that Cassie was never on the trail to begin with, and that Grant and James simply went to Spruce Mountain so that they would have this alibi and this story that they've put together. And something that backs this theory up is that when sniffer dogs searched the area, I don't believe they could pick up Cassie's scent anywhere on the trail. Something else that doesn't add up in this story is how Grant and James were both able to find their way off the wooded trail, yet Cassie, who again was the most familiar with this trail and this wooded area, wasn't able to. So even if it was dark out at the time the trio initially got lost, it eventually got lighter out, and Grant allegedly returned to search for Cassie. This indicates that she was never on the trail to begin with, or that she was never able to get off for some reason or another, like being hurt or being too injured. When we begin to analyze the men's story, the broken back window may also look suspicious. Could Cassie have potentially been put in the trunk or in the back seat and potentially have broken the window from the inside out so she could try to get out? Remember, according to Grant, he broke the back window because he was cold and wet and didn't have the car keys because they were with Cassie. If this is true, however, wouldn't it make more sense to break one of the windows and unlock the door and simply open the door and climb in that way, instead of just breaking the back rear view window and having to climb in through the trunk or through the back seat? When it comes to motive, many people think that Cassie's past unfortunately caught up with her. Like I previously mentioned, Cassie was sentenced to 2 years of prison time and 3 years of probation in 2017. This would mean that if she served the full 2 years, she wouldn't have been out for that long, and she may still have been on probation. Something I haven't mentioned is that Cassie was originally sentenced to 20 years of prison. However, as we know, Cassie only served 2 years in prison and 3 years of probation. It's been rumored that this could be because Cassie gave up names and information on other drug dealers or other information in exchange for a shorter sentence. If this is the case, there could be many people out there who would consider Cassie a snitch and want to hurt her. If the 2 friends that she were with were also involved in illegal substances, which it's rumored that they were, could this be the motive to hurt her or potentially set her up in some way? I also wonder if she regularly saw these friends or made plans with them. Unfortunately, not much information about the nature of their relationship has been released. We do know that Cassie had a boyfriend, but he isn't either of these men, which of course that's fine. People are allowed to have friends of the opposite gender. However, I bring up the nature of their relationship because I wonder if they hung out frequently and regularly. Because if they didn't regularly hang out and this was a one-off, or if this had been just a more recent thing and then Cassie had suddenly disappeared, of course this is something that is unnatural and something is obviously not normal. Something I find noteworthy also is that sources claim that the active searching by law enforcement has been suspended. Interviews and other investigative work is obviously continuing. However, the suspension of the searching leads me to believe that authorities have reason to believe that Cassie may not be in the Spruce Mountain area that they were previously searching in. Whether this is because no scent was found of Cassie's in the area or because they have other reasons, I'm not sure. However, that's what this leads me to believe. Personally, I don't know if I believe that Cassie ever made it to that trail. I don't know if I believe the men's story that they had been hiking all day. I've seen mixed information about the cell service on the mountain, with some people saying that they're not able to get any cell service, with others saying that they are. Law enforcement have yet to disclose any information on where the phones of any of the 3 hikers have last pinged, but I would be really interested to see if it really was in the Spruce Mountain area or not. Of course, her phone could have been taken to Spruce Mountain even if she really wasn't there. It's very easy to just take someone's phone even if they aren't really there themselves. Ultimately, I really hope that Cassie is found safe and that she comes home soon. And I know her family is currently still searching the Spruce Mountain area, specifically in hopes that she is somehow there, but they may expand their search efforts. I actually saw an update from her father that he was actually going back to search that area today. But again, I know that people are urging them to expand their search efforts. Cassie is 5'3" and weighs approximately 120 to 130 pounds. She has blonde hair and blue eyes. At the time of her disappearance, it is believed that she was wearing a hoodie and camouflage pants. She has several facial piercings, including her eyebrows, her ears, and her lips. She also has a belly button piercing. Cassie has 2 tattoos on her upper chest that say Ruby and Bella. I'll have pictures at the end of this video so you have a better indication of what she looks like. And if you have any information, of course, the number that you should call will be in the description down below, along with all my sources as always. And that's all I have for this case. If you like this video and are interested in keeping up with recent missing person cases, don't forget to go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe.